I wanted to stream this as a starting point. The wife is currently out with the antisocial cat, so I'm taking some time to essentially show the 2018 rewind idea that we were going to try as a league that we didn't have enough support for. But I'm going to try, and I emphasize the term try, to do this on my own setup. Now, I decided I looked at rosters, and what I wanted was a roster that had either an aging quarterback or a quarterback core that wasn't very good, and there was some other options. As you can see, we have the skins back in the league. I put the Washington skins back in. We can't use Redskins as a team builder setup because, well, Redskins is a protected name, so we can't use that. But we can use skins, so that's close as I can get. But I've got the logo and the uniform, and the stadium is pretty well set up. So, but um, I went through the teams, and the Steelers could have been an option. They got Landry Jones and Josh Dobbs, but Josh Dobbs is a rookie you might could maybe do something with. And then you got Big Ben at 35 years old, Deshaun Watson before he was found out to be what he is. Um, Marcus Mariota back in his younger days. The Vikings could have been an option with Teddy Bridgewater there. See if we could do something with him. Of course, he's in the last year of his rookie deal. Got Mitch Trubisky, so that's kind of out. Andy Dalton was 29 here. So I went through the league and mainly was focused on quarterback because I am going to be using a draft class that is essentially the 2018 draft class. This is essentially 2017 rosters. I know it says 2018 on the roster download, but it's 2017 rosters. But yeah, I went through all the teams and I thought about the Cardinals. I thought about the Cardinals, but ultimately I ended up not going with the Cardinals. Carson Palmer, I figured might actually stick around. Unfortunately, that was my worry. Actually, was that he would stick around. So that's why I didn't go with the Cardinals, even though they don't have a great roster otherwise. The Chargers, you got Cardell Jones and Kelly Clemens. They really nerfed Cardell Jones' speed. He actually had some speed coming out of Ohio State. Patrick Mahomes is a rookie, so he's not actually, the the god that he is now in Madden. You know, Brissett and Andrew Luck is actually rated poorly because this is the year Andrew Luck was hurt all year. So that's why the low rating there. Although I feel like 80 for Jacoby Brissett is a little bit high, even though he did play pretty decent. Dak Prescott. I thought about Miami as well because Miami, you got Smoking Jay Cutler. Ryan Tannehill's on the back is not going to be any much better than what he already is, and he's not that great. Um, and then you got Matt Moore, you got David Fields, you got Brendan Doughty. I mean, these are nobodies really. Eagles have stud Carson Wentz before he fell off the wagon. Uh, you got Matt Ryan. Of course, playing the Falcons just hurts my soul, so I can't really play the Falcons. Um, Thought about this 49ers as well, but it's one of those things where um, I don't know. I think I have an aversion to playing the 49ers because of previous matchups against my Saints. I also thought about the Giants because you have an aging, Eli Manning who still can get it done for another year or two, but then you got Davis Webb. Do you want to make him a player? Do you want to try and make Geno Smith a player who's basically recovering from being in New York with the Jets? Then you got the Jaguars, 25-year-old Blake Bortles. That's still a young quarterback. Thought about this team as well, going Christian Hackenberg. Maybe seeing about making him actually worthwhile in this version in this universe. But I was like, nah, I don't feel like that. And ultimately, I'm kind of just cycling through just to show what all you got Cam Newton, you got Tom Brady on here, obviously. You got Derek Carr that's whenever he was like MVP level. Derek Carr before he got hurt. Jared Goff, who's pretty good right here. You got a fading Joe Flacco. And I went with the Saints because you still have Drew Brees, who is a mentor slash franchise quarterback. Still got plenty of juice in the arm as far as, in this universe. But behind him, you have Taysom Hill, who in this league would have to be a quarterback, but he's already 27 years old and doesn't have great accuracy rating. So I don't have a quarterback behind to develop with Drew Brees at the helm. So this is one of those things where I might try and turn back the clock and try and actually do what the Saints should have done the first go around, which is essentially get a quarterback of the future and get him ready to take over with this team right now. The window for the Saints at this point was closing, and unfortunately, in real life, they didn't see it. Because here's the thing, this is the rookie class where we had Alvin Kamara in the third round. That guy was a stud, and you have Mark Ingram. You have a great two-back system here coming right out the gate. You also have an underrated guy in Daniel Lasco here, who was actually a pretty decent player for us a couple of years. Jonathan Williams, Trey Edmonds are depth pieces, not really anything to write home about. But your big 1-2 punch here is Kamara and Ingram. And you got Kamara on a very, very friendly contract right out the cuff. So you can run these guys in a 1-2. Not a lot of speed, but you definitely have some ability with Kamara playing receiving third down back and Ingram being the power back, veteran-ish style player. And then you got John Kuhn and Zach Line, because this was a fullback heavy setup, so we're definitely going to be using some fullbacks in this system. This is when we had Michael Thomas whenever he was a stud, because this is his second year in the league. We still had Ted Ginn, who was losing a step of speed, but still a speed demon. We had Willie Snead, who was a pretty solid slot receiver. Brandon Coleman was a decent four option for us. Tommy Lee Lewis was our kick returner. And then Trevin Durrell and Austin Carr. I remember Trevin Durrell briefly, but I do not remember Austin Carr. Sorry, Austin Carr. But there's our receivers. Tight end, this is when we signed Colby Fleener to a horrible deal. And that was a terrible contract. Oh, that was so bad. But it was awful. Josh Hill was a solid second tight end. Michael Manawanui was actually our best option there because Fleener got hurt with a concussion, if I'm not mistaken, and we overpaid the crap out of him. I don't remember Clay Harbor, but a veteran guy there. You got Teron Armstead locking it down. This is before he started to fall off with injuries and then got sent to Miami. Anders Pete, the busted tackle, is actually inside as a solid guard, but this is a guy I probably would look to move on from. You got Landon Turner behind him. That's a guy I might look to try and keep around. You got Max Unger in the tail end of his career. This is before we picked up Ryan McCoy. This is when we had Larry Warford. We had just picked him up from, I believe, the Lions, and Senio Kelemete, who we picked up from the Texans at that point. So we overpaid Larry Warford, and I don't think he lived out that contract, unfortunately, because I think injuries doomed him. But our guards are solid. Our interior line, our offensive line is pretty good, honestly, with a young Zach Street or an aging Zach Street and a young Ryan Ramchick before injuries crippled him. So we have a really good offensive line coming out of the gate. So this team is built to run the ball right out the cuff to help Drew Brees and future young quarterback. You still got in his prime, still Cam Jordan, Al-Qadim Muhammad as his depth piece. I do not remember this guy, Mitchell Lowen, but I do remember Trey Hendrickson, who developed into a heck of a pass rusher and then couldn't afford him because, well, the Saints have cap issues. So essentially he ended up going to Cincinnati in free agency a couple of years ago. But solid developmental piece, and he's a rookie in this one. We had a hell of a rookie class this year. Selden Rankins was in his second year, a guy who got hurt his rookie year. Tyler Davidson's a solid interior plug, run stopper. Nick Fairley was a guy we brought over for pass rush, who had been a little bit of a bust in his career. David Onyemata was still young, but was a future good player there in the middle. And then we move on to linebackers, where we get a little bit weaker, but Alex Anzalon's a guy I always liked, but he was injury prone coming out of Florida. And then Gerald Hodges. I honestly don't remember Gerald Hodges. Most of these guys I do kind of remember. I remember this guy. We signed him, or we drafted him, excuse me, and he was supposed to be an outside pass rusher in a 3-4 set, but unfortunately he just was always injured and never that effective whenever he was in there. So he was a little bit of a bust. I can't remember what round we picked him up in. But we have Manti Te'o and Michael Mowdy. A.J. Klein was a guy we picked up that year from the Panthers, I believe, in free agency. So that's a little bit of an expensive guy to have down there in your third and your depth chart. But Manti Te'o would be leading our troops here in the middle. And then on the outside, Craig Robertson was a guy I actually really liked. He came out of nowhere to be a leader on that defense at that point in the timeline. Then at corner, you got rookie Marcus Lattimore. I believe this is our first round pick in that draft. King Crawley's a solid young guy. PJ Williams at that point was still a guy he had gotten hurt at this point, so I think he was coming back from an ACL at this point. Delvin Breaux's a guy we picked up from the CFL that came over, and what an odd mix. He's got bridge player and future starter. But I really like this cornerback room because for the most part, it's got a lot of solid size. I mean, you got 6 foot, 6'1". Why is Ken Crawley a superstar? Wow, that's okay. Not what I would have picked. Um, Delvin Breaux, PJ Williams, those are solid. That's a solid four corner set. And you've got Devontae Harris there at 5'11", who's also a pretty solid kid at 23 years old, but a little bit step slow. Then in the back end, you got rookie Marcus Williams. You got Von Bell still. You got Raphael Bush. You got Kenny Vaccaro back there as a thumper safety who can cover a little bit but is a step slow. Banjo's just a depth piece. And then you got Will Lutz as a kicker and Morstead still the punter. And unfortunately, we have our picks from 2025, so we don't have any of the actual picks from that time frame. But the thought process is this. I think what I'm probably going to do is ultimately simulate the first year and just let the computer play it out. Injuries will be on the whole time. I'm going to do weekly strategies and do roster stuff, but other than that, re-signs, but other than that, I'm just going to let the computer play year one and get us to a draft. I do want to show the league settings, so that way, I am having to play this online, so this is an online franchise. I'm going to do 11 minutes when I play with a 20-minute play clock. I'm actually using Armor and Swords All-Pro sliders from Operation Sports with a little bit of modifications. Same type of setup we have in WFL where I have 10 and 3 for both offense and defensive play calls. On-field advantage is on. Everything here is basically set the way it is in WFL. Everything here WFL. Everything here WFL. I will say, though, here I normally have it basically turn this stuff off. I've actually got it on Keep Individual, which I have on. So I'm going to have the ability to ball, heat seeker, switch assist, things of that nature. I am going to try and follow when I play WFL rules as much as possible. I may do actually some switching, but I'm going to try not to switch on pass plays just like we do in WFL. Trading I've got on hard because I'll be the only user. So I want to make it a little difficult for me to pull off trades. Free agent motivation impact, I'm going to turn that back up to high. I had it at normal. Relocation settings, I'm turning off completely. Staff is going to be normal. I did turn off pre-existing injuries, but practice injuries and injuries will be on. Probably going to turn off progressive fatigue for the sim year because the computer's kind of wonky about this kind of stuff. Everything else is pretty much default except for here. In WFL, all of this is maxed out. In here, I'm going to stick with essentially defaults on these two and drop this one from 400 to 320 by default. Superstar abilities are off. Minimum roster size is going to be 46. I just don't want the computer to fill rosters. And then we're going to just look at gameplay sliders, so that way you can see what I'll be working with. It's going to be a lot different than WFL, so that'll be something that I'll have to get used to. Pass blocking is going to be at 55. Run blocking is going to be at 0 for user. Interceptions are going to be down at 20. Tackling's at 40. QB accuracy is at 15 for the CPU. You can kind of see as I flip through all these things what all the different sliders are. Injuries are a lot higher than they are in WFL for sure. Fatigue is also a skosh higher, and minimum speed threshold is, I think, 20 points higher. I think we're at 75 in WFL. Offsides and false start a little bit higher. Holdings is the exact same. Face mask is a lot higher. Defensive pass interference is equal. And illegal block in the back is a little bit higher at 55 instead of 50. Otherwise, WFL stats across the board. So I wanted this to be a little bit different than WFL, but hopefully with a one-user experience playing the CPU a lot, hopefully it'll be a challenging but winnable experience with the CPU. And then finally, XP sliders. This is something where it'll be wildly different from WFL, and WFL might do some adjustments to this anyway. But yeah, this is essentially our setup for this. And I'll flip through these real quick just to kind of show you what kind of stuff we're working with. A lot of this didn't tweak much. This is an official slider off of Operation Sports. I can't remember who Armor and Sword uses, but it was their recommended XP slider. So I said, well, I'll do that for my offline or my hybrid offline. And then there's your defensive regressions, your special teams regressions, and then age regression rates as well. Now, some of this I did slightly tweak a little bit, but most of it is from the sliders. I think his slider set when he wrote it out was backwards because he had guys that should be dropping instead not dropping as fast, and so I kind of flipped some stuff around to make it make sense a little more. But for the most part, these are the sliders that were on Operation Sports for XP. And that's pretty much it. I hope to essentially do an episode one officially. This is kind of the intro episode, but I'm hoping to do episode one where essentially um, I'll basically simulate to the end of preseason. I'll do my practice squad, explain my reasonings for practice squad stuff, maybe even do some free agent signing. I think I'm going to simulate everything year one, so I'm not going to play any games, but I will have injuries on, so that way I can go week to week and kind of keep up with injuries and be able to do signings and practice squad manipulation and stuff like that. Um, but I think that's what I'm going to do. Like I said, this is the 2018 season, 2017, 2018 season. There's our divisions. Obviously, I didn't make any changes there. And I'm looking forward to trying this out. I would like to. My plan, if you're not familiar with me and WFL, which is fine. I really in the past I've tried to make Josh Rosen, who was a bust in real life. I've tried to make him successful in any iteration of the WFL and have had moderate success to no success with it. And then in this draft in particular, my boy Deion Kane is going to be a rookie. So I'm looking real forward to no matter where his draft stock is, I'm going to pick his booty up in like round 2 or 3 or wherever I can pick him up where it makes sense and kind of tear up house with him in New Orleans. And I'm hoping to pick up a quarterback. I'm hoping to pick up Rosen. It depends on where my draft picks are going to be. But my game plan is year one, we get through, we see how we do in the playoffs, if we make the playoffs, how far we get in the playoffs, and take our draft picks and essentially work to make this team into a potential dynasty moving forward because we have to move past the Drew Brees era and not kill ourselves with cap like we have in real life. So my idea is essentially we're going to try and move on, and we're going to try and do that. We're going to try and move on from Drew Brees and draft the next big quarterback for New Orleans and hopefully have a run game around him and some supporting pieces to where that rookie quarterback, whoever it is, can kind of grow with us. So but that's the intro episode. That's all I really got for this episode. Like I said, the next one I'll probably go through preseason and maybe stop there, and then the next video after that will probably be like the whole season where I'll go week in, week out, and do like strategy sessions and stuff. So we'll see how this works. We'll see how many episodes I actually get into this. We'll see if it draws any interest. If it doesn't, that's fine. But I'm just going to do this in my spare time as I see fit. And hopefully, I'll have a little fun with it. But I'm going to, like I said, sim season one, and then after that, we'll play it out from there, and we'll see what happens. But I've got draft classes all the way from this draft class to the real life 2024. So essentially, I could potentially play, what is that, 7 seasons? So I could actually see real life movings and comings and goings of players. So that I'm hoping to have a little fun with it. We'll see if it gets any traction from folks watching it. If you're watching it, appreciate it. If not, no worries. Just enjoy it, and we'll catch you next time.